But you're talking about what? You're talking about...
The Creative Impulse Podcast.
Are they all here?
All but one.
Well, I'm going anyway. Let's talk about something important.
The Creative Impulse Podcast.
I've been in this business 15 years.
What's your name?
The Creative Impulse Podcast.
That's my name.
This is Jerry.
This is Wayne.
This is Dave. And you are listening to the Creative Impulse Podcast.
How do you stay creative while having to, live your life? You got to pay bills and do a lot of things you don't like doing. And how do you...
Easier because, like, if you're getting... Basically, the question is getting versus getting paid to be creative. So, anytime you're getting paid for something, it's not going to be following your inner inspirato. You're going to be having to tap into a discipline, and it's going to be a bummer. I mean, this is just whether it's dance or Olympics. Anytime you are being asked to perform anything, performance, and this is one of the reasons I don't like performance as much as the writing side of things, is because in writing, you can't really do it wrong per se. I mean, after a while, you can do it less good than there's ways that you can get more of what you're trying to do than you pay more attention, you do it closer to how you want to do it. But when you're presenting a performance, like the whole point is for it to be a specific thing, which is what we were talking about from our Mohenjo days. And so, anytime you're getting paid to do something, like when I was getting paid to tell jokes at the comedy clubs, I didn't want to try my new stuff while I was getting paid because I wanted to make sure that the audience was always laughing. So I would just do the jokes that I knew for a fact were going to work for like 6 months, and it was such a bummer, man. You know what I mean? Like, it was really boring and I kind of hated going, and you'd be like, so some people would be like, wait a minute, you got staged, young comedians would see this as like a really weird complaint. So they'd be like, let me get this straight. You got stage time, which is hard to do. You got paid, which is like pretty rare. And you like knew how to get laughs regularly. And that turned into a bummer for you after a couple of weeks. And the answer is yes, because it's a discipline as opposed to the passion we were talking about. So my question for you guys more is, when you do get paid for something creative, how do you possibly maintain that passion for it?
He's turning the tables on us.
I noticed that. I noticed he asked us the question.
You guys are very astute.
I think you should answer the question first, then.
Getting back to what we were talking about with music, for me, again, the satisfaction is the creative process, working with musicians.
Yeah. The collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, there's a satisfaction from doing something technically well, elaborating on your inner voice, developing a style, but also not actually knowing where something is going by working with other creative people. There's that inspirational space for you to, communicate with other artists. I mean, I was really passionate about music when I was in high school. When I got out of high school, one thing is I had this problem with performing. I just didn't find satisfaction out of it, and I just wanted to keep creating. But the other thing was I did not want to have any dictates placed on my music. I want to make my livelihood as a musician, but in order to do that, I will be answerable to who? To an audience, to a label, and I'm not interested in that. So what I did is I moved into commercial art and saw that as, okay, I can make that deal. I can express myself on the visual side of it and not feel like I'm devaluing myself, because my real passion was for music. I made a conscious decision. I didn't want to, dilute my love of music and expressing myself through music by making it a commercial venture. There were certain compromises I would have to make that didn't feel right to me.
My thing is illustration. I mean, I really enjoyed whenever I was able to get anything in illustration. Now, when I would be getting paid to do illustration, I think I would do well, because I would be inspired. It's like, oh, somebody's actually paying me to do this. Somebody values my work in a sense. As far as like non-creative stuff powering the creative stuff, I think when you're doing the non-creative stuff, the want to do something creative just builds and builds. It kind of like,
and that's what nights and weekends are for.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, you can have fun doing stuff if you've been thinking about it all day or all week, and then you come home and that's That's what that time and space is for, right? If nothing else.
Like,
I mean, some people are watching the game. Some people don't have that creative drive in them, and they watch the game.
With the whole thing of performance versus the creation of like recording a piece. I guess when you're recording a piece, the work on the piece is technically already done. It's something you've already visited creatively, and you feel, okay, well, I can put this away because this is done. I think you're always sort of like once something's been achieved, then you move on to the next.
Okay. Absolutely, especially when money and demands of things. Like I would never be able to. You could take something I love doing, but when you have to do it. I think there's a rebellious side of the creative process too. So like let's say, all right, God forbid, like morning radio. I did an internship in morning radio, and I loved my radio show in college. Then I get into actual morning radio, the kind that can make money, and I had to do it every day. I was like, this is for the birds, man. First of all, this is like the kind of a stupid show. Like it's not very, it's basic format morning radio, and like the internship is early, but like the idea that. When you get money, basically obligation, right? That's the O word. You know what I mean? So obligation, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I keep bringing it back to stand-up. Like, I had seemingly every amateur comedian's dream. I had like a regular gig, getting a little bit of money and getting laughs every week. But I was like, dude, I have to be here every week. I just did this last week. You know what I mean? And all the weeks before that. So like, there's when it's not really on your terms, when you're doing it for practical reasons. When you introduce practicality, I mean, obligation is what kills the inspirato that drives this stuff. I think.
It's funny, yeah. I think that if I had to, well, I wonder if sometimes if I had to survive off my drawing, that I wonder if I'd enjoy it as much. I love the fact that I can go home after working all day and do what I want to do with my drawing.
I tell you what, I cannot think of a single thing that I like to do that I would want to get paid for. that I think I would still like to do it.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
The Creative Impulse Podcast. What it means to be alive.
Here's another question. I mean, are we kind of getting at the difference between art and craft? Does anybody want to elaborate on that? Like, what's the difference between art and craft? Is it one that's something that you're getting paid for, and the other thing something you're doing because you're serving a higher purpose, or is that the difference between art and craft?
Well, yeah, I mean, craft,
or is there a difference?
Craft is ultimately a practical application of some artifice. So, if you need to have this movie or this song or MP3 or something be a certain thing, then that's craft. But if you just are enjoying the creative process and whatever comes out of it is what it is, I think that's art. I think art, it's a subcategory. Craft is a subcategory of art. Would you agree? Or
Yeah, well, I mean, whether you get paid for it or not is sort of a byproduct. David Lynch creates Eraserhead. That's art. But over the years, I guess you could say quantifiably, it's done very well financially. It doesn't undermine the fact that it still exists as art. I feel like you're implying that you throw commerce into the mix and it somehow devalues the idea of something being art. Or
another question, is it a dynamic categorization, meaning that at some point in the life of a piece, it can be or an act, it can be considered craft, and at some point it can be considered art. Could you consider the Police Academy films art, or at one point, and then another time, could you consider them?
I feel like
craft?
This is an apples and oranges. I mean, craft
is it subjective? Is this a subjective thing?
I think you're saying what's the difference between art and maybe like commercial art, or something that serves a commercial purpose.
Some people differentiate. Some people will classify some art as, I guess they'll say it's a lower art. They're saying it's pure craft. Like, say you go to you're at the mall and somebody has these these sketches or paintings of Elvis, and then somebody says, oh, that's just craft. That's not real art. But to someone else, it is real art. So it's almost, I guess some people would use that as a kind of a mode of evaluating the value of a piece of work that someone's created. So I don't, I guess perhaps you could argue that, commercialism could be another venue to evaluate.
I mean, to me, art means the expression of a personal vision. I don't know. How do you define art?
I think art is subjective. I think you have the right. I think it's something that you project on things. I think the whole idea of calling something art is an exercise of power because you're adding value to something. You're saying you could say you're a factory worker, but you might say that factory worker is an artisan because they're so good at what they did. So I think it's very subjective. I don't like the idea. I don't believe that personally. I don't believe it's absolute. I'm trying to be devil's advocate.
You could get down to the basic definition of these things. So art, of course, is short for artificial. You know, so anything that is not, so you can see a sunset is beautiful, but it's not art, right? Because it occurs naturally and it's essentially noise, but it happens to be beautiful because that's how we evolved to find beauty in that. So art would be like someone's drawing of a sunset.
That's intention.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, art is the incorporation of intention into some rendering of a thing.
But then you can read intention into something. I mean, I think the whole thing you could take a photograph of any point in this space and put it in a gallery, and then suddenly you can call it art.
Right, like Jackson Pollock, I would argue, is the closest thing to not being art, but it is art. Yeah, it clearly is because it doesn't occur on its own. It's not like you left some moldy things in the fridge and that's like your painting, you know what I mean? But it's like, this is kind of amateur art criticism on my part. I could not imagine what it could be attempting to incorporate, in a way where you've rendered something that represents something more than the physical what it is.
All right, well, some of what Richard Pryor did, I think you could categorize as art because of it's so profound. Would you say that maybe that gets at a universal definition of art?
It resonates. Something
resonates with people.
Resonates with you.
People are able to connect to it.
Yeah, I would argue that. I mean, the only addition that I would add is that I think it's subjective. I think it just changes over time. But yeah, I think that's dynamic. But yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, this is ultimately a needlessly exhausting question because you can talk about how specific you want to get in your definition. So some people say art versus entertainment. Whereas art, I think Mark Maron has a quote where it's like, art is something that compels you to reckon with it, versus entertainment is, he would probably say, is something that is designed to make you happy with where you already are, is designed to keep you emotionally and mentally where you are. And art is designed, I would think he would say, to force you somewhere new. And that's just
challenging.
I mean,
challenging aspect
that's an amazingly poetic way to look at it. But it's just like you're just talking about the definition of terms at this point. So, but I normally subscribe to that if you're hard pressed to encapsulate it. Art is something that brings you somewhere new. The discovery, and entertainment is something that keeps you where you are or keeps you happy with where you are.
Well, I guess I guess let's. I guess we close it out by saying, what do we look forward to in the future, like in our future endeavors, and like anything you're working on, and we can look forward to seeing you. Like we can. No. You want to plug anything?
I mean,
this has been a pointless exercise.
Yeah. well, if anything else, you should be happy to know that I didn't come on here just to plug things. So that's if absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean,
we have no listeners anyway, so it wouldn't do it. No, I'm just joking.
I don't.
For now,
I listen.
Yeah, I don't.
You're a single listener. No.
It's like Flight of the Conchords.
The only thing I would have said is last year when I was turning 30, I surfed the web for 24 hours to raise money for pancreatic cancer. Yeah. Which was like the only thing that I would have wanted to like incite traffic for. I mean, there's nothing I don't have any. Basically, long story short is I don't have anything currently that I'm proud of that I want people to go check out. If they like Philly comedy, or if they're interested in that, of course, check out witout.net or.
Can you spell that?
Witout, WITOUT. Not unlike when you're ordering a cheesesteak in South Philly and you say, I want one whiz wit and I want one whiz without. Oh. It's a pun because as if there's no wit in the jokes being told.
I mess it up every time I go there, by the way.
Yeah. You mean ordering or just?
I mess up the ordering.
You order in Spanish? Is that? There's a sign. They just be clear not to do that.
He orders in Braille.
Yeah.
What about Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Ronald Reagan, the actor, does not have any shows at the moment booked.
Can you talk a little bit about this this act? Like
Ronald Reagan, the actor.
yeah, I mean the guys you're working with, we know where the name came from, but can you tell us why?
Yeah. Okay, so I would say half the fun, but realistically and sadly, 20% of the fun of starting a new band is naming it. So I have some buddies, friends of friends from college that are now good, close friends of mine. We were like trying to, we had been jamming and stuff. We're like, let's kind of just start a little garage band type of thing. And to describe the music, it is instrumental psych rock with pop culture samples. So, you would hear sort of like some kind of eerie music and some guitar flourishes and then like some famous quote. Actually we used Ronald Reagan, we used Back to the Future for one of them, like you would expect. And that's, there's a touch of, kind of got a 70s feel, some proggy kind of stuff, but it's but the we were like, what do we name it? And we spent a good amount of mental energy coming up with the perfect name. And I will say that Ronald Reagan, the actor, as a name, has probably gotten us more gigs than perhaps we might have merited at the time. You know what I mean? So we got to
World Cafe, right?
We played World Cafe. We played Johnny Brenda's North Star Bar. We opened probably our biggest profile gig is we opened up for Octopus Project at North Star Bar, which is like they're like a how would you describe them? Well, they're an instrumental electronic band. They were Passion Pit's touring opener for the last Passion Pit tour, and they're like kind of a popular band amongst today's youth. But so we opened up their headlining tour at North Star Bar. And that was kind of fun, and yeah, we don't have any gigs coming up. You see, that's the thing, though. It's like we were saying, like being a jack of all trades, master of none. It's like Ronald Reagan, the actor, like for all I know, might not have another gig booked. Like we're not gonna break up really necessarily ever, but we might not have another gig booked till, for all I know, another year or so. I mean, we've been talking about getting back in the studio, and I'm certainly on board for that. But everyone has so much stuff going on in real life. You know what I mean? Everyone's got jobs and new wives and new houses and stuff.
But you had a creative desire, and that led you to express yourself with this act.
Oh yeah.
But you didn't have the desire to make a living, to make a livelihood from it. So it frees you up from from the obligation that you talked about earlier.
I wouldn't be able to go on tour with a band, unless like one of our heroes asked us to go on a national tour with them and all the wives were on board. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine making a living off of playing music. I'm not a musician. You know what I mean? Like I know a little bit of how to make noise sound organized. That's about it. You know what I mean? I never studied music. I never really, I learned how to play off of a lot of some websites. I learned a couple scales, and I'm lucky to have an ear. I have I can't read music, but I have a good ear for I can play things. I can recreate it if I play, and I think it sounds good. That's about it. But I don't have
I think he's being very modest because some of the best stuff we came up with was collaborative.
Absolutely, I'm great at collaborating. I'm great at complimenting what other people are doing. And that's not a musical. That has manifested itself musically certainly, but that's not essentially a musical trait. I'm basically very social. And I'm basically understand the give and take that goes into any collaborative situation. But I'm not I wouldn't be able to be a touring or a career musician. You know what I mean? I have very little background music. I took piano lessons growing up as a kid, and I haven't played the piano now in years. It's so.
Maybe we should
tell us one of your jokes. We'll end on one of your jokes.
I know one of my jokes.
Or tell us your favorite moment from The Wire or True Detective or something. Talk about that. Talk about what those shows. Say something about your favorite.
True Detective. I think my favorite episode is a lot of people's favorite, which was when he went with the biker gang to do a drug ripoff.
Oh God, that was amazing.
I mean, who thinks of this stuff?
Yeah.
That was a one take.
Who thinks of this stuff?
Amazing. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's and I should point out to its credit, patently unrelated to the main narrative of the show.
I know.
You know what I mean? How do you get away with having such a
totally indulgent and perfect?
It's
at the same time.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up because I'm of the mindset that I want to get away from people referring to indulgence as a pejorative term.
Right, yeah, exactly.
The best things I've ever seen, There Will Be Blood, You know, it's wildly self-indulgent.
Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now, which I get can be tough to watch, and it's not my favorite thing to watch all the way through, but it's not a great work of art. You know what I mean? The problem when people use the phrase self-indulgent, especially in internet criticism, what they're saying is that the artist does not deserve to indulge himself, or he does not merit self-indulgence.
Or he just doesn't care about the audience.
Or
He's
saying
callous.
we're saying we're immature, that we're children, that we're we're selfish and self-absorbed.
Yes, right.
But when Daniel Day-Lewis does it, and and There Will Be Blood was the first time I watched it before it sunk in the gravity of what was happening with this dude. I was like, this movie's I'm not sure what the big deal is about this. What's it called? Breaking Bad. The first
No spoilers.
No spoilers. But the first season of Breaking Bad, I was like, okay, everyone says this is the greatest show of all time, and it was kind of slow moving. I'm like, it's not bad, but I was like, I don't get why this is such a big deal. And of course, as you go along, you realize a point of why this is such just watching it is such going to be an important, memorable moment in your life.
There's a callback here.
Yes.
The Mark Maron quote.
Yes. It compelled me to reckon with this part of myself and this part of other people that I wouldn't have been forced to reckon with. So, anyway, good alley-oop there.
Yeah, although I might cut that together in such a way that I just take the snippet of you saying it the first time and add a little echo, so it's like a memory from the past.
Art is something that compels you to reckon with it.
Wait, but I do think that's a good note to end on.
Excellent.
So thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. That was awesome.
Same time
Thank
next
you,
week.
What? Wait, so we did?
Wait, what?
Thank you, Lane. Thank you, Dave.
No. Thank you, Jerry.
The Creative Impulse podcast was filmed before a live studio audience.